Good evening and welcome to St. Andrew's United Methodist Church, where kids stay connected. This is our second book in our book club. We've been doing a book club to help stay connected during social distancing, and we are reading WishTree by Catherine Applegate. And we are on our third night, starting with chapter 17 this evening. Chapter 17. As much as I was concerned about the baby's reaction to Francisca's words, I was more worried about Samar. What would happen when she returned from school and saw the word carved into me? Would she think it was meant for her and her family, as Francisca and the police seemed to assume? She came home alone. Ahead of her by a few yards was Stephen. A reporter from the neighborhood newspaper was waiting on the sidewalk, interviewing people as they walked by. Word travels fast in our parts, especially when there's yellow police tape involved. Had they seen what had happened? The reporter kept asking. Had they ever made wishes on the wishing day? What did they think the word leave meant? The reporter approached Stephen. Did he know why somebody would carve leave into the beloved local wish tree? Stephen stared at the reporter, then he glanced behind at Samar, sending her a shadow of a sad smile. Without answering the reporter, he headed towards his house. Samar's eyes darted from Stephen to the reporter to me. She ran closer, saw the word, and gasped. She reached a hand toward me, but the police tape put me out of reach. Are you a resident? The reporter asked. Would you like to comment on the incident? Samar didn't say a word. She turned and walked up the sagging steps to the little blue house, her head held high, standing tall, reaching deep. Chapter 18. Around 6 that evening, Sandy and Max returned. When the police knocked on the door of the greenhouse, Stephen's parents opened it and answered questions. They shook their heads, they shrugged, then they shut their door and closed the curtains. When the police knocked on the door of the blue house, Samar's parents opened it and answered questions. They rubbed their eyes, they sighed. Then they too shut their door and closed their curtains. As Sandy and Max headed back to their cruiser, Sandy paused beneath me. I wonder if we could make a wish, she said. Might be our last chance. I'll tell you what I wish for, Max said. I wish I didn't have to investigate things like this. Sandy patted her shoulder. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. As for me, I spent the evening hours reassuring the parents and offspring who called me their home. They weren't just worried about where they would have to move, of course. They were worried about me. I was worried about me too. I didn't want to leave the world I loved so much. I wanted to meet the next spring's owl nestlings. I wanted to praise the new maple saplings across the street when it blushed red at sunset. I wanted my roots to journey farther, my branches to reach higher. But that is how it is when you love life. And I could accept that if my time had come, it had come. After a life as fine as mine, who was I to complain? I was worried about the babies, though about their parents scrambling to find a new safe place to line their nests, dig their burrows, and hide their winter stashes of acorns. Most of all, I was worried about Samar. I don't know why. Perhaps it was because she reminded me so much of another little girl from another time long ago. A little girl had managed to shelter successfully. Francisca's great-grandmother, like I said, we go way back. Chapter 19. Long after midnight, Samar came to visit me. She wore a blue robe. Her dark curly hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail. Her eyes held moonlight in them. She sat on the base of my trunk on her blanket. She didn't look at the carved word, or the splinter of moon, or the blue or greenhouses. She just sat quietly and waited. It always took a while, but it always happened. One by one, the babies ventured out to see her. Harold was first, flapping awkwardly down to the ground. The raccoon babies, you, and you, were next. Raccoons' mothers are notoriously forgetting. so they don't bother with traditional names. The possums, the skunks, they all came. Samar sat perfectly still. The baby circled her. Together they sat in the shimmer of the moonlight and listened to my leaves rustle. Bongo settled on Samar's shoulders. Hello, she said in her crow version of Samar's voice. Hello, Samar said, echoing the echo. Bongo squawked and Samar jumped a bit. Even Bongo's quietest call is a bit on a harsh side. Bongo flew up to my smallest hollow and poked her head inside, her tail feathers still visible. With something shiny in her beak, she returned to the ground in front of Samar. Gently, she placed a tiny silver key attached to a long, faded red ribbon in Samar's open hand. It's beautiful, Samar whispered. Thank you. Bongo bent forward, wings spread in a sort of bow. It was in crow circles, a sign of great affection. I'd seen that key before. Bongo had inherited it from his mother. Crows live in extended families, and they pass information across generations. It didn't surprise me that Bongo still had the key, or that she had decided to give it to Samar. In the sweet calm surrounded by everything I loved, moonlight, air, grass, animals, earth, and people, I wondered with a pang how much longer I would be able to savor such moments. I wondered, too, had I done enough for the world I loved? It was something I'd asked myself before, but impending death has a way of focusing your attention. Sure, I'd provided plenty of shade, made oceans of oxygen for people to breathe, been a home to many endless parade of animals and insects. I'd done my job. A tree is, after all, just a tree. Like I told Bongo, we grow as we must grow, as our seeds decided long ago. And yet, 216 rings, 864 seasons, and still something was missing. My life had been so safe. Upstairs, a curtain in the greenhouse moved. Behind it, Stephen was just visible, watching us. I knew what he was thinking. One of the advantages of being a good listener is that you learn a great deal about how the world works. In Stephen's eyes, in the way he looked at Samar that afternoon, I saw something I had seen many times before. A wish. Chapter 20. After Samar left, I felt restless. Restless is not a useful quality in a tree. We move in tiny bits, cell by cell, roots inching farther, buds nudging into the sunlight. Or we move because someone transplants us to a new location. When you're a red oak, there's no point in feeling fidgety. Trees, as I said, are meant to listen, to observe, to endure. And yet, just once before I said goodbye to the world, what would it be like to be something other than passive? To be an actor in the stories unfolding around me, maybe even to make things a little bit better. Bongo, I said softly, are you awake? I am now, she grumbled. I have a question. I'll get back to you first thing in the morning. How does friendship happen? Bongo responded by snoring. I could tell it was fake snore. Her real snores are so loud, they scare the baby possums. I'm serious, I said. Bongo groaned. I don't know, it just happens. But how does it happen? Friends have things in common, Bongo said. And there you go. Your answer in 5 words. You see you now, pal. I thought about her reply. Well, what do you and I really have in common? When you get right down to it. With a loud exhale, Bongo flew to the ground. Okay, I'm thoroughly awake now. Thank you. Thank you very much. What is this all about? Just an idea. Here's an idea for you. Ideas are a bad idea, said Bongo, especially if someone is in the busybody mode. I'm looking at you, Red. Back to my question. Why are we friends? Okay, fine. Let me think on it for a minute. Bongo walked to a slow circle around my trunk, considering. I love the way birds move, so unlike trees. We bend with the wind. They're graceful and unhurried. Birds, on the other hand, move in flits and twitches. Their heads whip from side to side as if they're just heard astonishing news. Bongo paused. Well, to begin with, you're my home and I'm your tenant. But that's not really a reason for us to be friends. I've had residents I wasn't particularly fond of. That squirrel, what was his name? Squinch, the one with bad breath. It's not important. It was Squinch. Bongo, I said. Please focus. Bongo gazed up at me. We're friends because we're friends, Red. Isn't that enough? Her voice was small and sweet. Not our usual get to the point crow tone. You're right, I said, but suppose two people needed to be. How would you make that happen? Maybe get them together, doing something. They yak, share a laugh. Voila, friendship. Am I right? I don't like it when you Humming leads to ideas. You can go back to sleep, Bongo. Thanks for talking. You're a good friend. Likewise. Bongo flew back up to her nest. Hey, be sure to let me sleep in. Bongo? Now what? One more thing. Why do you think people can be so cruel to each other? It's not like the rest of us are exact angels. Last night I saw Agnes eat a whole lizard in one bite. Agnes, the barn animal who lived with her nestlings in my highest hollow, flapped her wings in annoyance. Hey, a girl's gotta eat. And you are a fine one to talk, Bongo, she said. Is it anything crows won't eat? My point, Bongo continued, is that the world's a tough place. Doesn't matter if you're a bunny or a lizard or a kid. With that, Bongo started snoring. For real this time. But I was still wide awake. Ma, what's that horrible noise? Came the startled voice of a baby possum. That's just Bongo sleeping, her mother replied. Bongo had been right. I was hatching an idea. She'd always said I was a busybody, not to mention an optimist. An optimistic Bazinski. Well, there were worse things. Trees are strong, silent type, unless we're not. Chapter 21. Bongo, I said early that morning, as the last stars faded like weary fireflies, there's something I need you to do. Does it involve potato chips? Bongo mumbled. No. Then I'd rather sleep. It's about Samar. You promised you'd let me sleep in. I didn't promise. You implied. I want to grant Samar a wish. This rose Bongo. She fluttered down to her favorite branch, the one she'd nicknamed home plate. Bongo likes to watch the kids play softball at the elementary school. Oh, Red, you don't make wishes happen. You're the place where wishes go. You're like a leafy garbage can, in a good way. For 216 rings, I've sat on my roots and listened to people hope for things, and a lot of times those wishes never happen. I'm guessing. Bongo tucked a feather into place. Sometimes that's for the best. Remember that kindergartner who wanted a bulldozer? I'm passive. I just sit here watching the world. You're a tree, Red. That's kind of the job description. This is a good wish, and it's a wish I can make happen. I paused. Well, we can make happen. Yeah, I had a feeling that's where this was going. Bongo glided to the ground. Look, I heard Samar's wish. How exactly are you going to find her a friend? You'll see, I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. Red? Bongo paced back and forth. With each step, her head bobbed forward. We've got more serious issues, pal. Francisca's talking about turning you into toothpicks. And your residents are frantic about where they're going to move if that happens. She came close and nudged me fondly. Of course, we're worried about you, too. I know that. Fresh baked bread poked her head out from under the porch. It was barely dawn, and only the white stripe running the length of her face was clearly visible. I've offered to take in one of the tree families temporarily, she announced, preferably the possums. They're better behaved than the ewes. That's very generous of you, Fresh, I said. But I was interrupted by Big Ewe, the mother of the 3 baby raccoons. She was in my large hollow, grumbling under her breath. I beg your pardon, she exclaimed. You, and you have excellent manners. They're too inquisitive, said Fresh Baked Bread. Always poking their noses where they shouldn't be, grabbing things with those little paws of theirs. Well, at least they don't stink, Big U cried, and your children have paws, last time I checked. Harry Spiders, the mother possum, peeked out cautiously from her own home. Possums name themselves after things they're afraid of. Stink is in the nose of the beholder, said Harry Spiders. And while I personally think your children have a delightful odor brush, I've already got dibs on the wood pile 2 doors down. Should anything happen to dear Red, she patted me. No offense, love. Just thinking ahead, you know. No offense taken, I assured her. I saw that pile first, Big U cried. Share the skunk den, Harry Spider said. I wouldn't be caught dead in a place like that. Big U exclaimed. Not now. Now that I know my inquisitive children aren't wanted. Well, they are a bit boisterous, said Harry Spider. At least my children have spunk, said Big U. Your kids faint when they see their own shadow. Playing possum is a useful adaptation, said Harry Spider, her pig nose twitching. The world is a dangerous place, and in any case, we can't control it. It just happens. If I may interrupt, came a cool voice from the lowest branch. It was Agnes. There's a nice looking linden tree 2 blocks away, just vacated by a gray squirrel family. We're looking at it as a possibility, but there's a tomcat that runs loose there. Collar, no bill. So that's an issue. Also, a big slobbery dog. In fairness, all dogs are slobbery, Bongo observed. I really think you should all calm down, I interrupted. Let's not buy trouble. One day at a time, my friends. Who knows what tomorrow may bring? The mothers glared at me. I heard a great deal of sighing. Oh, too much wise old tree, I asked. Too much wise old tree, Bongo confirmed, as everyone retreated into their homes. In a huff. They're all a bit tense, Bongo said, worried about your situation. I can see that. I'm worried too, Bongo said, in almost a whisper. I know, I said gently, but every cloud has a silver red. Bongo interrupted. Sorry. There must be something I can do, Bongo said. You're a good friend, Bongo, but sometimes all you can do is stand tall and reach deep. Red. Sorry, I said again. What will I do without you, Red? Bongo said softly. You'll be fine, my friend, I promise. We both fell quiet. At last, Bongo shook herself, feathers fluffing. In any case, maybe not the best time to be granting wishes, is my point. Seems to me this is exactly the right time, I replied, and Bongo groaned and her little old man groaned. She knew I wasn't backing down, and with that, we began to plan. Chapter 22. We executed plan number 1. An hour and a half later, when Stephen headed off to school, he had gotten only as far as the sidewalk when Bongo dove straight towards his backpack, poking at the zipper with her beak. She cawed frantically. When crows want to be loud, they can be extremely loud. What? Stephen cried. What is wrong with you, bird? He dropped his backpack to the ground. Bongo landed on the backpack, looking up at him. Hopefully. Chip, please, she said. Stephen rolled his eyes. Seriously? Hello, Bongo said. Chip, please. Stephen put his hands on his hips. Okay, fine. I've seen you in action working the bus line. Bongo hopped to the ground as Stephen unzipped his backpack. You rock, she said politely. Stephen pulled out his lunch bag and opened it. Let's see. Got a tuna fish sandwich, carrot sticks, but before he could say anything more, Bongo plunged into his backpack and grabbed a sheet of paper and flew skyward. Hey, that's my English homework, Stephen cried. Come back here, you thief. Bongo flew high into the branches and landed with a victorious caw. Stephen stalked around the bottom of my trunk, where the yellow police tape encircled me. Please, Crow, he pleaded. I'll give you my whole sandwich, please. Bongo perched on the paper, freeing her beak. No way, she replied. A few more minutes of grumbling and Stephen gave up. Great, he muttered as he grabbed his backpack. Miss Kellerman is never going to believe me when I told her that a crow ate my homework. Chapter 23. When Samar exited her house, it was time for the rest of our plan. She paused, as she always did, to say hello, and Bongo, as she always did, said hello back. But this time, Bongo surprised Samar by landing on her shoulder and presenting her with a mangled piece of paper. Samar took it from Bongo. This is Stephen's name on it. Why on earth do you have it? No way, Bongo said, by way of an answer. Well, I'll be sure he gets this, Samar said. Bongo gave a little call and headed back to me. Perfect, a simple plan, beautifully executed. Samar would give the homework to Stephen. They'd strike up a conversation about the crazy crow in the big oak tree. They'd laugh, they'd share, they'd realize they have a lot in common. Voila, friendship. It was a great plan, except for the part that came just seconds later. The part where Samar noticed a friend of Stephen's walking by. She dashed over and asked him to give Stephen the piece of paper. And that was that. Meddling isn't as easy as I thought it would be, I confessed to Bongo. Hey, I did my part. You were wonderful, I said. Well, we'll just have to try again. We don't have a lot of time. Red, Bongo said with a sigh. Please don't remind me. Chapter 24. That afternoon, we tried plan number 2. This isn't going to work, Red, Bongo said, strutting back and forth on the lawn. Pessimist, I said. Optimist, she replied. Secretly, I had my doubts, though. Our second plan required help from one of the babies. There had been much bickering over which baby would get to assist us. But then, there had been plenty of bickering ever since Francisca's threat to cut me down. It frustrated me to see my residents, the ones who'd miraculously been getting along so well, turn on one another when faced with a problem. Granted, it was a big problem, but if I could handle it, it seems like the least they could do was behave during our last days together. Bongo flipped a penny she had kept in a collection of treasures, and we arrived at our helper, the smallest baby possum, Flashlight. Let me get this straight, said Bongo. You're afraid of Flash? Shh, Harry Spider hissed. We try not to say that word around him. So, what do you actually call him? Agnes asked. He answers to Flash, Harry Spider explained. Well, Flash, said Bongo, you understand the drill, right? You pretend to be dead. You guys are good at that, right? Flash nodded excitedly. Possums are the best dead pretenders in the world. So, you play dead, Samar and Stephen see you as they are coming home from school. They're hoping they can come home about the same time today, I interrupted. And they freak out, Bongo continued. See a cute little maybe dead baby talk about what to do. Are you certain this is safe? Asked Harry Spider. I'm feeling a little faint just thinking about it. We'll all be watching, and Stephen and Samar are smart kids. I reassure you, they'll know not to touch a sick animal. So they go get their parents, call the wildlife rescue place, maybe a vet. And while they're busy, Bongo continued, little Flash runs back to his dad. Samar and Stephen come back out, have a good laugh about the vanishing possum. Maybe the parents even get to talking. I really think you should do a better job, Big U explained. She's a born actor. Or you. This has been officially decided, Bongo said firmly. We flipped the penny, remember? Just saying, Big U muttered. Down the street, the school dismissal bell rang. Places, everyone, Bongo urged. This is totally going to work, I said. This is totally going to fail, Bongo said, at the very same instant. That's all for this evening. We will meet back on Thursday at 7 o'clock, starting with chapter 15. Have a good week.